Hello folks, Dallas, I keep calling myself Dallas, right? This is Scott with Dallas Paint Correction and Auto Detailing in Dallas, Texas. I had a subscriber ask me, and he seems like to, according to his tag name, his name on YouTube, I assume he's a professional detailer, and he wanted me to do somewhat of a review on the Chicago Electric, otherwise known as the Harbor Freight Dual Action Polisher. Now, what do I think of this thing? I love it. Yay, we're done with the video. Awesome, turn it off and go out and buy one. Well, there's a couple different things you need to know about this thing, and I'll get into it with you. When you buy it, it of course comes with the polisher. Hopefully that's the case. If you get the box and it seems awfully light, it might not have one of these in them, so make sure it's got the polisher in it, right? Gotta have that. It's also going to come with this thing. It's called the Warrior Backing Pad. Holy crap, this is far from a Warrior. This is a piece of junk. Do not, boy, I always get careful when I say things like this, but this Warrior Backing Pad, I promise you, this thing has to be thrown away. I bought 3 of these machines for different reasons. One with a 5-inch plate, 6-inch plate, and a 3-inch plate. But this backing pad here, made by Warrior, that comes with the dual action polisher, throw this thing away, and I'll tell you why. The hook and loop system on the back, the Velcro, it will release pads. It just doesn't work. Not a great design. The other issue that's really, really horrible with this is it's got the stud. It's got the 5/16 by 24 stud that attaches to the machine up by the counterweight. This thing, for whatever reason, I've bought 3 of them and they're always the same. The stud is molded and then riveted in with this cover on it. It's never completely straight. It's slightly, if I can tilt this thing, this stud is always on an angle. So if you put it on the dual action polisher and tighten it up, you'll turn or spin the backing plate without it on, of course, and you'll see it will wobble. It's because this stud is not molded perfectly straight into this backing plate. Plus, this backing plate is a piece of junk. Get rid of it. Don't use it with the dual action polisher. Trust me on that. If there's anything I can help you with, that's the biggest tip of this whole video. Do not use this. Do not use the pads that Harbor Freight has that goes in conjunction with this machine. They got a cutting pad, a polishing pad. They fall apart. They're pieces of junk. You don't want to go that route. But anyway, so what do? What I like is I like Lake Country. This happens to be a 5-inch plate. This is a Lake Country backing plate. It's got the little adapter on the back. Make sure that adapter, it's a little, I don't know what this is. It's like a really strong fiber washer. That's a better word for it, not adapter. I'll try to pull it off, but it's on there pretty good. But there's a little fiber washer on that backing plate. You got to make sure that's on there, because if it's not on there and you attach it to the dual action polisher, this riveted plate here with the rivets on it will grind up against the machine, and you don't want that. So make sure you always have that spacer on there on any backing plate you're attaching to a dual action polisher. So that's my biggest tip. Get a high quality backing plate. This one happens to be made by Lake Country. I like them. Buff and Shine makes good ones too. Meguiar's makes good ones. Griot's makes good ones. But you know, the hook and loop system is far more superior, better quality, will hold the pads well. Just get rid of that Warrior backing plate that comes with this machine. It's a piece of junk. The machine will also come with this handle. This handle you can screw into the side of this thing. I'm not a big fan of these handles, and I'll tell you why. If you're polishing, even that handle, the stud is not even molded correctly into the handle, so it's cocked on an angle. Seems like they have a problem with all their studs on the end of their accessories. But this handle here, I don't like it, because what will happen is if you use it, you'll find yourself pushing on it too much and your pad won't be flat on the surface. So I get rid of it altogether. Plus, it's awfully long. You could hit part of the car if you're doing a panel. I don't use these handles, never used them, even on porta cables, Griot's machine. On the Griot's, I don't like the D handle that's on top of it. I don't like that thing either, but some guys like it to hold on to it. I'd rather just hold on to the face or the head of the dual action polisher when I'm working on a car. But that's just me. That might make sense in your world, I don't know. But it does come with a handle if that helps you out. I don't use it. Doesn't make sense in my world. The other thing it will come with is obviously a wrench to be able to hold on to your dual action part of the mechanism, so when you're putting the back plate on there, it's not spinning on you. And this wrench here just slides into this little cut area here. If you used a porta cable before, it's pretty much the same. You just put your wrench on that nut so it doesn't spin on you. And then what you'll do is you'll put your backing plate into the screw hole and go ahead and turn it and fasten it up. But anyway, before I even put that on there, I want to talk about something else. Now, this machine here, it's got a 6-inch, what do they call these things? Jesus, it's been so long since I've bought one. A counterweight. It's made for a 6-inch backing plate, right? And for a 6-inch pad. So they have a 6-inch counterweight. They also make counterweights, and you can buy these aftermarket. Porter Cable sells 5-inch counterweights if you're using a 5-inch backing plate. To me, honestly, guys, it doesn't really make or break my world. I see no difference if I put a 5-inch counterweight using a 5-inch pad. Oops, I put that down. On a 5-inch pad, on a 5-inch backing plate, I don't see any issues. It's a counterweight. They want you to use a 5-inch counterweight when you're using a 5-inch backing plate. It helps with vibration. To be honest with you, I've never done it, even with the Porter Cable or my Griot's machine. It just doesn't make or break your world. But if you want to do that, that's fine. That'll work for you. But anyway, I'll put this backing plate onto this thing. So you just put the little wrench through the inspection hole there, and then I'll put my 5-inch Lake Country backing plate on this machine. Come on, Scott, line up those holes. Get those threads right. And then what I do is I just make sure it's hand tight. I don't go crazy with it, but just nice and snug, hand tight, that's fine. But the tool does come with the machine does come with the wrench, so that's nice. It also comes with this little Allen key bit, and it's got the other end of this Allen key's got a rounded port on it. It's not an Allen key, it's just completely round. If you took this black plastic cover off, there's a hole in the top of this head, and you would put that Allen key in there. It stops if you wanted to take the head assembly apart, it stops the counterweight and all that assembly inside the dual action polisher from rotating, so you can pull all that stuff up. Here's another point. I hear a lot of guys talking about the Harbor Freight tool. It's made in China, I'm sure. It's gotta be. It's too cheap not to be. I hear a lot of guys take these things apart. They'll pull the armature out of the unit. I've done it. I own 3 of them. On this unit, I did do it. I did take it apart. It comes with an extra set of brushes. If you need brushes in the future, that's nice. I will tell you, out of the 3 I've owned, this one was a little interesting. I took all 3 apart, and I'll tell you why. I found issues with the brush assembly, the brushes that are inside the brush holders in the back of this deal. Every time I took the 3 I own apart, and you just take the screws off and you pull this plastic handle off, one brush was completely seated in the holder. The other brush on the other side was hanging off for dear life. There's a little spring-loaded arm that's always pushing on the back of the brush. And for whatever reason, maybe it's their assembly situation, the one brush was just barely hanging on for dear life. It may make one brush wear down faster than the other. That's kind of a insider's tip. But I also know people that have never taken them apart and they've never had issues with them. So you have to decide if that makes sense in your world. But in this one here, I did take it completely apart. I have some experience with electric motors, whether they be DC or AC. This happens to be alternating current. You're plugging it into a socket. I took it apart. I turned the armature, I sandstoned the armature, and I replaced all the bearings in it. They come with Chinese bearings on each end of the armature and up here by the spindle. There were Chinese bearings. I replaced all 3 of the bearings that are in this thing. I think there's 3, yeah. And I used NTN high quality bearings in them, put it all back together after I turned the armature, sandstoned it. If you guys want me to make a video in the future on how to get this thing apart, I'll do it. It's a little boring. But if it means something to you, I'll be more than happy to do it. When I replaced those bearings, those Chinese bearings in this particular model, and I used an NTN bearing, did I see a big difference? To be honest with you, not much. Maybe a little bit was in my own head, thinking, okay, I put high quality bearings in it. It lessened the vibration a little bit. Maybe it was a little bit more quieter. Maybe I use the other two machines for different reasons, and they all sound the same to me. My issue with this Harbor Freight tool is the switch. Some people like to turn this thing so the switch is on the top so it's easy to hit it with your thumb when you're working. I left it on the side. It doesn't bother me if it's on the side or on the top. It doesn't make or break my world. But I will complain about this switch. Not that it goes bad, not that it doesn't work, it doesn't turn on, but sometimes, I'll make sure this isn't plugged in or it'll scare the crap out of me. Okay, it's not plugged in. This switch can be a little finicky to get it to go into the on position. It's one of these fancy switches. Once it's in the on position, all you got to do is hit it with your thumb and it releases and goes to the off position. This little switch right here, for whatever reason, if you don't get it just right when you're pushing it forward, it'll fight you a little bit. It doesn't make or break my world. This thing was $59 when I bought it with a coupon at Harbor Freight. I'll put up with it for many different reasons, but this switch may be an issue. I just wanted to be transparent about it. All three of my machines do this, but when you want to turn it off, real easy. Just hit that button lightly and it will release real quick. What I love about this thing compared to the Porter cable, I'll even say compared to the Griot's machine, but the Griot's machine is a nice machine. But versus the Porter cable, excuse me guys, there's pollen floating around, it's killing me. Compared to the Porter cable, this machine has got more power, more torque. When I have a pad attached to this backing plate, and if I was to come up on a body line like this particular area here on this hood, let's say I was working over here, and I come up and hit this body line, this Harbor Freight tool will keep turning. If it's at 5 on level speed 5 or speed 6, I can work over that hump and still keep the pad or keep the backing plate rotating at speed 5 and 6. With the Porter cable, no way. When you hit the edge of that panel, that character line that's on this hood, that Porter cable will give up the ghost almost instantly. You'll really have to release your pressure, manipulate the hump, and get over it. This machine, yes, if you sat right on the edge of that character line on this hood, yes, you can make it stop. But it's got more power, more torque. It won't catch you off guard. You'll have power through that hump. Yes, you might have to release a little bit of pressure, but nowhere near as bad as the Porter cable. It's just got more power, more torque. What I also love about it versus the Porter cable and even the Griot's machine, the handle is slightly skinnier around. Does that make sense? Yeah, it's not as fat, so my hand gets all the way around it. I have large size hands. I don't have gorilla hands, but I find with the Porter cable, it's completely round. This is kind of tapered towards the end, and the speed control is on the rear. That's fine. I don't mind it there. That doesn't bother me. But I like that it's tapered. It's a little bit more comfortable on the end of my hand when I'm holding the machine. It's not so fat like the Griot's machine or the Porter cable. They're real fat on the ends all the way through the handle. I just think this feels more comfortable in my hand. Versus the Porter cable, as far as vibration is concerned, through the machine when you're working on the panel, they're about the same. They weigh about the same. The Porter cable weighs about 6.5 pounds. This is about the same as in weight. The Porter cable vibrates quite a bit. So does this machine. I wasn't expecting it not to vibrate. Putting those bearings in it, the NTN bearings, helped a little bit, but it didn't make or break my world. But for the extra power, the cut versus the Porter cable, you cannot go wrong buying this machine. I've owned 3 of them. 3 of them are still working. One of them that I own is over 2.5, over 3 years old. Still working for me. Just a little tip, if you're mechanically inclined, you want to pull the handle off, make sure both brushes are fully seated. I saw it with all 3 models. I don't know if they have a problem in their assembly production line or whatever, but that's what I found. I just wanted to pass it on to you. Now, that's my biggest complaint is the switch on it, a little hard to work it. Sometimes when you want to turn it on, turning it off is fine. Have not seen an issue with it. Once it's on, it wants to break or give up on me. It's close on its own and turn off on its own. It won't do that. It just works really well. I love it. I like it. I think for people who are doing one-step corrections, depending on your customers' expectations, their budgets, what you're trying to do for them, because to be honest with you, I don't care if you have a Griot's machine, this machine, a Porter cable. These things can get you some paint correction done, and I know that's going to bug some people out there, but true paint correction when we're leveling compound, in my opinion, folks, it comes with the rotary polisher. It just always will. But these things, even the Rupes machine, even the Griot's Boss machine, yes, they're nicer than these machines, but they have limitations too. Look at Rupes. They created their first machine. It didn't have enough power. They went to a second machine to give you more power. Those things will give up the ghost. The Rupes, especially the Rupes, will give up the ghost when you hit a body line like this. You really got to release the pressure. This you don't. This will get over those humps for you. But my point is, depending on the type of paint correction you're providing for your customers, their level of expectations. I work in the real world. This machine will satisfy 80% of my customers out there because they're not looking to spend $1,200, $1,300 for absolute perfection. And on OEM paint, that's almost impossible anyway. There's not enough clear coat to do that. That's a simple fact, but somebody's going to dispute me about it. Been doing it too long. But here's my deal. Just make sure you change the backing plate. Get a Lake Country. Get a Meguiar's. Get a Buff and Shine. Don't use the one it comes with. It's lightweight. It feels great in my hand. You can get over these humps on these panels just fine. It works great. I love it. Yes, it's got some vibration to it. It's a little bit more vibraty. Is that the word I'm looking for? But it's got more vibration than the Griot's. The Griot's is a great machine. It's got plenty of power as well. Just to be completely honest with you, on speed 5 and 6, this has a little bit more power than a Griot's machine, but the Griot's machine is a little bit of a smoother running machine, doesn't have as much vibration. You have to decide what makes sense in your world. How much paint correction are you doing on a daily basis? I do a lot, and I use this a lot. Not that I don't use my Rupes, my Griot's, I do. But I think for a beginner or somebody in paint correction, I've been doing it a long time, I love this tool. It's not going anywhere. So that's my little review about it. Mr. Detail, I think, asked me, hey Scott, can you do a review on it? You've seen me work it before. I'm not going to plug it in and make all sorts of crazy noises, but those are my little ideas, my reviews on this machine. I like it. It's lightweight, 6.5 pounds. The handle's not too long, gives me plenty of range. I hope that helps you out, guys. I appreciate it. Love one another. Until next time, be safe.